So when we last left off, we were in the Dean, and now we are deep into Edinburgh proper, and thus things are going to get a little a little unusual, as we touch upon some weirder things, and today, we'll start off with Stockbridge. Researching Stockbridge was kind of harder than I thought, because I thought we were going to get some weird story about how it came to be, like how Liberton was maybe, very most likely, a leprechaun, simply by its name. Stockbridge is an Old English, or more accurate perhaps, Anglic name, meaning wooden bridge. Wooden bridge! The bridge in question is the one everyone is thinking about across the water of Leith, which today is made of stone, so clearly there have been many on this site. The current one has a bit of a Ship of Theseus situation going on, with some saying the bridge was built in the early 20th century, with others saying that it's a modified version of a bridge dating back to 1788. Either way, the bridge is old, and the site of the bridge is even older. Around 1800-ish, it was a small hamlet, but within 40 years it became a sizable suburb, according to the 1838 Gazetteer. It became an area for the well-to-do, as it is still today, with Henry Raeburn owning land in the area, and because he owned land on each side of the main road, the main shopping street was named in his honour, Raeburn Place. You may know Raeburn for his paintings like The Skating Minister, that one painting of Sir Walter Scott, and being the portrait painter to George IV. Weirdly, I cannot find a painting of George IV done by Raeburn. In 1817, there were plans to build a canal through Stockbridge, which I cannot imagine went down well with the well-heeled denizens of the area. Stockbridge never had a railway station, with the nearest being Scotland Street, but that one didn't last too long, as we well know, as I did a video on it. What it did have was the Edinburgh Northern Tramway. I have touched upon the ENT in the past because, well, it was interesting. It was a cable-hauled tramway with two lines connected together with a spur through their shared depot. I'm sorry, is that an advert for a slave market? You can still see the site of the depot marked out on the side of an office building near Cannon Mills. The Stockbridge line started at Frederick Street and ended at Comley Bank. Cable trams eventually died away with the advent of electricity because, frankly, they were inflexible, but at the time they were the best technology for the job. But at the same time, I wonder what they would have been like. The closest thing you can get to a street-running cable-hauled tramway in the UK is Llandudno in Wales. The Great Orme Tramway still operates today and pulls trams up the Great Orme. I wonder just how much outrage there would be if someone proposed a cable-hauled tramway up Arthur Street between St Margaret's Loch and Dunsapie. It would certainly be cool, but I believe there'd be uproar even if it wasn't street-running. So, in a past video, I spoke about how Highland Whisky became such a prominent industry through, well, bootlegging. But as we have discussed in a previous video, there were a lot of distilleries in Edinburgh, and in fact, there was one in Cannon Mills. Cannon Mills Distillery appears as disused on the 1849 town plan, but up until the 1970s, it was used as a maltings. It seemed to have been quite a substantial distillery, but I looked into things further and fell into a little rabbit hole. I'm going to quote from kennetpans.info, a website dealing with past and present distilleries. Run by James Haig until 1788 when it went to sequestration, along with the other distilleries owned by Haigs/Steins. This was due to the collapse of their English distributor because of the new Lowlands Licensing Act, which prohibited export to England for 12 months. Wait, what? So this refers to the 1788 Lowlands Licensing Act, and it kind of touched a nerve as a Scot who hates Westminster and has a knowledge of history. If you know your history, you may recall that after the Darien scheme failed, England banned Scots trading in England, but not vice versa, to drain Scottish finances and basically make it more likely for Scotland to join the Union. But they also passed another law after the Jacobite Rebellion banning kilts, bagpipes, and the speaking of Gaelic. But what happened in 1788? Well, the reasoning behind the Lowlands Licensing Act can best be described as an act of London favouritism. So the run-up to the act saw the Lowland distilleries making a lot of whisky that made its way to London, which became very popular. This rise in production of Lowland whisky was mainly because of a lowering of duties in England and the Scottish Lowlands, and as a consequence the Lowlands made up for the demand for whisky that would normally come from the Gaeltacht. This made the London gin industry rather mad because Lowland whisky was starting to be favoured over gin by the London public.
This baby is having a restless night, whereas this baby is sleeping soundly. This is because this baby's mother gives it gin. Mothers and babies, for a good night's sleep, drink gin.
So they went to Parliament and got an act passed that banned whisky moving south the border for 12 months, so people wouldn't be able to get whisky and would drink their gin instead. This understandably threw the Lowland whisky industry down the proverbial stairs and even drove Robert Burns to write an open letter to William Pitt the Elder in the Edinburgh Courant, a predecessor to the Evening News. I guess corporatocracy is certainly nothing new. Where Tesco and Cannon Mills is today used to be a railway depot, a fact that I touched upon in a previous video. In fact, we have touched upon this railway a lot because it is a fascinating railway. It was the original company of both Trinity and Scotland Street stations, but we haven't really spoken about the railway itself. The Edinburgh, Leith and New Haven Railway started life in 1836 with a proposal to build a line from Edinburgh to New Haven. 1836 was just before the railway mania started, but the railway was proposed to solve a problem that faced canal companies for a while. How do you get stuff from inland to the fourth ports? There had been several proposals before the Union Canal was built to move the canals downhill through a series of locks to Leith, but these never came to fruition because, well, all of them were a little mad. Under one proposal, there would have been a flight of locks down Lothian Road. So the ELNR, which eventually changed its name to the Edinburgh, Leith and Granton Railway, went another route. A railway from what would become Edinburgh Waverley to New Haven and Leith. The majority of the effort of the line was put into a tunnel under the new town, which today we know as the Scotland Street Tunnel, which was an expensive and Herculean effort. The tunnel was steep, too steep for the locomotives of the time to climb, so at the station at the top of the hill, rope haulers was used to get up and down the tunnel. There was no shame in this at the time, as both the Edinburgh and Glasgow and even the Liverpool to Manchester railways used this method to get up the Cowlairs and Edgehill tunnels respectively. But what it did mean was that the railway was basically split up into two sections. But what of the locomotives? I hear you scream into the void. Well, there are no detailed pictures of them, but we do have descriptions. According to the North British Railway Study Group, 2 of the locos survived into NBR ownership, and they were described as 040 tender engines built in 1847. For those not in the know, it had 4 wheels linked up through pistons through coupling rods with a tender on the end. The locos were built by R&W Hawthorns of Leith, who built another 040 locomotive 20 years later, the Ellesmere locomotive, which is currently at the Museum of Scotland. These locomotives were not contemporary, so don't look at this one to imagine what the ELGR locos looked like. The railway was eventually taken over by the Edinburgh Northern Railway in 1847, and they in turn were taken over by the North British Railway, which is the story of almost all small railways. The NBR then developed a new route to Leith and Granton via Trinity in 1868, which made the original Scotland Street Tunnel obsolete, along with the original ELNR route. Parts of the railway remained opened until the 1980s, with the line to Granton via Trinity surviving into BR days, but alas this too was abandoned and it became a part of a network of very useful cycle paths. And that, ladies, gentlemen and nons, is where we are going to leave it for today. Thank you so much for watching, and I will hopefully see you in a month's time.